daughter, wife, or sister. It's because they're a human being. Like, what is wrong with these people? What is wrong with religious conservative men and religious conservative women that support a gender-based privilege system that benefits men? Why conservative Christians don't want consent sex ed classes taught? Every state should have mandatory fact-based information available to anyone, regardless of age. We should be teaching our kids about critical race theory and feminism history, Black history, Latino history, Asian history, queer and LGBTQIA plus history. But conservative and Christians don't want that taught, because if you're aware of how bad they've treated people or what kind of historical backing that they've supported, from the Ku Klux Klan to the anti-civil rights movement, the demonization of people who had access after Roe versus Wade. Why is 87% of mass shooters, why do they come from the right-wing conservative group? Because that's where you're going to find white supremacy, where you're going to find violent misogyny, just the deep hatred of women, of anybody who is not white and male. And this is why I grew up in 30 years where anything that wasn't white and straight was erased. And I asked my professor 2 years ago in class, is it a hate crime to erase people, erase entire types of people, from asexuals to gender fluid? He said yes, because the intention of erasure is to limit knowledge. And where there is knowledge, there is power. Which is why people who are typically undereducated, less knowledgeable, less traveled, choose to be Republicans. I don't think a lot of them make a choice. It's either that or you get ostracized from your community. The whole problem is, it's an us versus them institution. If they're not coming for us, they're making plans to get to our children. It's always they're coming for us or they're coming for our children. Which is ironic, because the people who support Trump are conservatives. And Trump supports and is on a list of people who are dangerous to children. I always say that the person who screams loudest about protect the children or keep the transsexuals or gay people away from our kids are most likely the predators. And anyone who stands next to Trump or one of his little cronies, I would not be surprised if they get arrested for crimes against kids, because at least 3 of them have. And a lot of them are mega church pastors. And there is a double standard. When it comes to purity culture, the way we view women's autonomy is completely dehumanizing. We celebrate men's independence, sexual aggression, dominance. If a woman showed 10% of what we applaud men for, she would be deemed a threat, villainized, and basically treated like Britney Spears. Because any woman that doesn't uphold and adhere to the patriarchy is a threat. Because if all women woke up tomorrow, October 16th, and decided, you know what, we're just done with being led by men. We're done catering to men who care less about us than they do the newspaper. If women just decided, you know what, we don't need you. We don't need men. And you really don't. Any more than a man needs a woman. You need water, oxygen, food, and a safe place to live. That's all you need to survive. You don't need a partner. You don't need anything you can live without. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have friends, wanting to have a peer group, wanting to have a family. But you don't have to have one. And if it's not going to make you happy, don't do it. I've lived half my life single, child-free, pet-free, because that's what makes me happy. I lived 30 years of my life catering to godly behavior, which is very thinly cloaked as misogyny. Because any religion that is created, led by men whose deity is a male father figure, you are creating a patriarchal institution. A religion that has a female goddess at the center is going to be much safer than a religion or a belief system that is controlled by a stereotypical male god. Because anytime the leader of your religion is a man, men are going to see themselves consistently. Men are going to see themselves as the pinnacle of creation because they most resemble their God. There would be less misogyny on this planet if the number one religion on this planet centered around a female deity. You look at religions that are controlled and run by women or have female deities. They're much more peaceful. They may not treat their women very well, but they're much more peaceful. When you have a religion that's based on a male god, led by men, you are setting yourself up to fail. And we failed. Christianity would never have become a world religion if it wasn't for a Roman emperor. And he used Christianity to become richer. That's the only reason why politicians are religious. It gets them more money, more power, and more influence. That's why we have separation of church and state. So nobody can use religion to further their own greed and their own advancement. We have double standards in this country. And we like to blame each other. We need to stop seeing religion as sacred. Because Christianity has killed 200 million approximately people. Okay? 200 million have been killed by people who claim to be Christians. Religion isn't sacred, it's violent. That's not to say that all religious people or all churches preach violence. That's not true. But biblical scripture is extremely violent, misogynistic, downright cruel to anyone who isn't Jewish. We should not hold the Bible up as a book that teaches us about morality. Because if your God kills babies and instructs your men not only to mutilate their genitals, but kill everyone and take their land. No wonder the white men who came over here and did the same thing to Indians, no wonder they did that. Because their Bible did that. They're just reliving Jewish occupation of Palestine. No wonder the conquistadors and the pilgrims and all of these white communities and settlements why 50 years after Thanksgiving they started killing everyone who wasn't white. Because their religion recorded when their God told them to do it. They're just reenacting the Bible. And nothing works so well to justify the most desperate, the most grotesque, the most unforgivable crimes against anyone who isn't white or male. Is so easy by using the Bible. Because the Bible justifies genocide. Justifies every kind of act of depravity and taboo. As long as we consistently elect men into positions of power, specifically white men of privilege, you've screwed yourself already. I mean, the odds of this person you've selected being white, male, and cis, giving a damn about anybody but his constituents, is pretty nil. You might get lucky. You probably won't. Anyone who elected and voted for Trump, there is no way that Trump is going to protect trans people. I mean, I wouldn't wish Florida on anybody. They are one of the worst states to be anything but cis and straight. And we live in a society that is so cruel. Its most popular religion hates women. Every church that believes and teaches that women should be silent and that men should lead shows nothing but utter contempt for women. Men can get away with anything.